And there's no other way for me to talk about it. Community is the thing that has always made TGS possible. Fast forward and again, go back to COVID. It's only the community that allows you to even survive through that time period.
Have you ever had an idea that just would leave you alone? The kind of idea that keeps tapping you on the shoulder, whispering, this could be something real. But pursuing a vision like that is uncomfortable. It requires belief before there is proof, courage before there is certainty, and it often means building something that does not yet exist. Today's guest knows exactly what it means to follow an idea like that right into reality. Ryan Wilson is the co founder and CEO of The Gathering Spot, a groundbreaking private membership network bringing together creators, entrepreneurs, and leaders in spaces built for connection and collaboration. What began as a bold vision has grown into a nationally recognized community platform with locations in Atlanta, Washington, D.C., and Los Angeles. But what makes Ryan's story so powerful isn't just the success, it's the mission behind it. Creating spaces where ideas grow, relationships matter, and the community becomes a catalyst for opportunity. I'll be transparent. The Gathering Spot has been my home for my own events, so this conversation is quite personal for me. In this episode, we're exploring what it means to pursue an idea, how you hold on to a vision when others can't see it, and what it takes to build something meaningful from the ground up. If you've ever been pulled toward a dream that feels bigger than you, pushed by a vision, then this one's for you. Before we get into this conversation, I want to be honest with you. I walked into the interview not quite knowing how it was going to go. Ryan is someone that I admire, and the Gathering Spot, his club, had been my home for events and the salons that I love to host. When the news broke that the club was closing, I felt it personally, and I wanted to talk about him, not about the closure, because this interview was scheduled long before the closure was a thing. But I do want to talk to him about the closure and what it means to hold a vision in difficult moments, moments like this. So, this is what this episode is all about. Let's welcome Ryan to the show. Welcome, Ryan.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Good to see
Good.
you.
Well, it's good to see you too. As my daddy would say, better to be seen than viewed. So,
Absolutely.
so every meaningful idea starts with a spark. And I would love to know what was the original idea that made you know that the gathering spot needed to exist?
Well, first, thanks for having me. I'm really excited for this conversation, but it's funny where life takes you. I had no expectation of becoming an entrepreneur. My goal growing up was to be an attorney, and to me, that was going to be the best way to be helpful in my community. When I looked at folks that I thought were making a difference, it felt like many of them had law degrees and were advocating in a way that, again, I thought was going to be my path. To make a long story short, I went to law school. I was at Georgetown Law in DC, and between my 1L and 2L year, I came back to Atlanta, where I'm from, and it was the same summer that George Zimmerman was on trial for Trevor Martin's murder. And so I was watching that trial, like many people. And when he was acquitted of Trevor Martin's murder, I got an email from some friends that simply said, "What are we going to do?" And I responded back to them saying, "We need a physical place to have this conversation." And so I didn't know what to call that place, but I knew that it needed to exist. And as I continued to think about the other things that we could do in community with one another, that's how the restaurant and the workspace and the event kind of components of TGS came together. But the entire idea was born out of me fundamentally believing that there need to be places where people can come together to work on really important problems.
I love that. I have made the gathering spot my home for about 9 months, and I had had the experience of going to a co working space and having the experience of feeling like family. And that has been my experience at the Gathering Spot as well. What I love about it is the diversity of the community, the intergenerational aspect of it, and it really does feel like family. So thank you for following your
Thank you.
calling. It's not an easy thing to do. And as you said, you were still in law school, but you recently have celebrated your 10-year anniversary. So congratulations. That's
Hey, thank
amazing.
you. Thank you. Yeah, no, 10 years is humbling. It's a milestone for me that's important because the stats, specifically around Black-owned businesses, are not great in terms of the number of businesses that make it to year 10. And so I'm really humbled, thanks to good folks like you, that we've been able to just stick in the game that long. There've been a lot of different seasons of TGS over the 10-year period that I'm talking about, from the kind of early formation days to COVID, which is its own. We could have a conversation in and of itself. Just how does a business called the Gathering Spot navigate a time period where you couldn't gather?
Gather.
We were acquired and reacquired, and there's just been a bunch of different seasons of how I look at them, and so I'm um, I'm grateful that we're still here and still able to do the work in a way that is meaningful to me. And one thing that you said that is super important is that it is intergenerational, and it does require people from all around the cities where we are, from different industries and ages and perspectives broadly, being brought into shared space. That was the original thesis. And so I'm grateful that piece of it has come to life. We're not just brick and mortar, just tables and chairs. It's really real people that make TGS what it is every day.
Well, I love that. And you can go to a co-working space and just go and encounter something that's nothing more than a room and a desk and chairs. But that is not the experience of TGS. It is truly a place where you can experience a family. Now, part of being an entrepreneur requires you to stay committed, even when other people can't see the vision that you are holding in your mind. What role did the community play for you when you were just starting, when it was in its sprout stage, infancy?
Community has been the only thing that's made the entire thing possible at any stage in the journey, but certainly early on. Uh, we didn't have a track record, right? This is my first venture as an entrepreneur. I have a very short resume. It has one line item: CEO, co-founder of the Gather Spot. And so it took just some tremendous trust from a lot of people that did not have to trust us, that this thing really was going to be something. And there's no other way for me to talk about it. Community is the thing that has always made TGS possible. Fast forward and again, go back to COVID. It's only the community that allows you to even survive through that time period. Now, we've made adjustments throughout the way. During that season, during COVID, um, we had this campaign that simply said, "We all we got," right? Which was an agreement we had with the membership, where if folks continue to participate in TGS, that we would reinvest their dues really to businesses in the community that needed emergency capital before. And this is before PPP or any other kind of intervention. Our community was reinvesting in itself, making like the Gathering Spot a reality, but then also propping up other businesses that probably would not have navigated that time period in the same way. So yeah, again, there's no way for me to really talk about this and not talk about the people. The brick and mortar, the structure themselves, yes, are important, but it's the people that call the club home every day that allow us to do this.
I love that. Where did the idea of, like, you were basically still in your infancy of having an organization, and the impulse to share and what can we do to support others? How do you stay in that kind of generous, creative mode and not be closed off and feel more competitive?
Yeah, I mean, look, I grew up in the AME church, and for me, that's an environment that teaches you early on that the only way that we're going to be able to accomplish anything large is if we do it together. And I do really look at any attempt to divide the community, divide people generally, right? There's an objective there, right? That's not a random outcome that's being sought. Someone wants to produce that outcome for a very specific reason. And so my job every single day is to resist and fight against what is, again, a lot of times an active attempt to try to get people to feel like there is competition when really collaboration would be the thing that would unlock where the opportunities are. Um, I see that as just kind of an objective fact. It's not something that I wake up and have to work towards. If I am truly committed to there being meaningful progress, that progress is on the other side of work with really good people in order to achieve whatever outcome it is that we're trying to make happen. Many of the issues that we're also talking about are large, they're systemic, right? So almost by definition, you are not going to defeat a system by yourself, right? The systems were designed so that individual action really makes very hard for there to be meaningful shifts that occur. It is only through collective action that a system really can start to be challenged. And I, again, try to stay in that posture because what I experienced in the business community is that folks from a distance would believe that there are just in even in business this idea that like businesses are competing with one another and they don't talk to one another. That's actually not the case, right? If you go inside of most industries, there's an extreme amount of collaboration. They might not be making money together, right? But there's always information sharing and relationship that exists. And a lot of times people that have been at multiple shops over the year, like that's actually how things get done. We're only taught and it's talked about in the opposite way. Again, because that makes it easier for somebody else to make something else happen.
Right, and it is the thing that kind of breaks us down, that feeling that you are all alone or that you have to do it by yourself makes it difficult to get started or difficult to keep going. But if you actively resist that, then you have a stronger foundation. And as someone coming out of the AME church, you know the whole scriptural basis of where two or more are gathered, then you are more powerful. And then that there is another power moving through you that's bigger than the two of you. So I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, um, I sometimes follow you on social media, and you've talked a little bit. First of all, you have a strong voice. It can feel almost harsh, but it's, I guess what it really is candor. And you tell people what needs to be said. One of the things you talked about is the journey wasn't easy. And I know that when I was in law school, they just kind of threw out most businesses fail within 5 years. And the main reason they fail is because of undercapitalization. And so you had to take this idea that doesn't exist anywhere in the world. What are you, like 24 years old, running around talking about, I'm going to start this organization and it's going to be, this is the thing it's going to be. And you have to sell people on the idea. Can you tell us a little bit about how many people you talked to before you got your first yes? Because I love this story.
Yeah, I had to count. It was 97 people before the first person said yes. And there was a lot of learnings in that process. There continue to be learnings just as you start trying to think about how to capitalize your business. And look, I for anybody that's going through that part of the journey, just don't be discouraged. I mean, I'm a big firm believer that whatever it is that you are doing, there is a reason why you decide every single day to wake up and apply yourself to that thing. And so while investors or prospective investors may have expertise and success in a space, right, that does not necessarily mean that they will be able to immediately tap into what you should understand is your assignment, right? That's the thing that you're building. And so I have respect for people that are on that side of the table, investing and looking for opportunities to participate in companies and drive returns that way. But I don't mistake that for them having total control on my work and how I'm pursuing what I'm doing every single day. And on the social media piece, I appreciate, like, for me, I'm not a content creator. I think that there's two things that this era requires, and the first is for us to be very plain with one another. There's a lot of people that are on the internet saying things that to me are not rooted in the realities of what it actually means to start a business. And that's not to scare anybody. I'm actually quite on the opposite end of that. I think you're more than capable to make that business that you are passionate about a reality. But you deserve a high quality conversation. You deserve people talking to you very plainly about it. And then the second thing that you'll see from me is that there's just an urgency to this moment that I think has to also always be present. There's a lot going on right now, and we don't have the luxury of having a casual kind of engagement with the most important issues of the day. We have to be urgent about the way that we talk about them. So I am urgent, right? I don't feel like I have unlimited time to make any of these things. Again, where many of the issues that I'm talking about on a regular basis are systemic, right? And so that almost by definition necessitates that we take a long-term view to how they're going to be solved. But if I accept that as the journey that we're going to be on, I can't casually kind of walk through what should happen next. It's actually quite the opposite of what needs to happen. We have to be urgent, and I have the privilege of being funded by the community that I serve, and that means that there aren't a ton of other stakeholders that are important to me as I'm having these discussions that would necessitate me having the conversation in a different way. Said differently, I don't have to soften my position on an important issue because I'm worried about anybody else but the gathering spot community, which again I identify as a privilege that I try to exercise.
What I love about that is one, your candor, and two, this feeling of I have a responsibility to someone other than just me and mine. It's bigger than me. It is a dream and a vision that's been placed inside of me for a purpose. Okay. Now, before we go any further, I'd love to pause and let you sit with something that Ryan just said. Somewhere in the conversation, something probably has landed with you. Maybe it's a word or a feeling, but whatever it is unique and personal to you. It is not an accident. Inviting you to pause and consider what is the dream that's been trying to get your attention. Stay with it because that thing that's tapping you on your shoulder, it matters. And it's time for you to listen. What Ryan says next in this section of the podcast is the reason I wanted to have this conversation because it's the part about entrepreneurship that people rarely talk about and they certainly don't post about. Let's give a listen. So I love that. When I talk about your candor, I know that there was a post that you did about, and it may be how I heard it. It may not be what you said, but it's how I heard it is that in order to have a real business, something that is a going concern, that's really going to have an impact on the community at large. You need employees. One, because you can't do it by yourself. And two, that's what's really going to have an impact on the community when you actually are employing more than just yourself or a handful of people. But that requires some risk. It's a responsibility to take on employees. Do you understand what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I completely know, right? And look, a person that has the biweekly responsibility of payroll, right? I completely understand the the idea of like less of that operational burden would probably make any business owner feel better about just the opportunity for the business to be successful in the long term. What I'm more trying to get at in conversations like that is for us to zoom out a little bit and to understand that to the extent that, again, there are these systemic issues that plague our communities, most of those issues are tied to lack of opportunity for folks to be able to really live life to its fullest potential. Well, what I don't like right now, and what I often equated it to, is we understand, or at least most reasonable people understand, that having a network of PWIs and HBCUs provides our kids options. So this just go with me on this frame, right? We enjoy the fact that when our kids are thinking about where they want to go post high school, there's an option that exists on the table depending on the type of experience they want to have. What I'm uncomfortable with is that that same sort of optionality does not exist in a professional context. So whether you go to a PWI or an HBCU, you're going to statistically work at a PWI because there aren't enough employer firms inside of the community to employ people at high enough wages in order to be able to make whole communities happen, right? I mean, and so that's less of an individual critique, and I would actually go and categorize it as a critique at all. It's more of saying, to the extent that we have businesses that are solving bigger challenges often require more people. More people employed in our community will allow us the flexibility to address the other things in our community that are important to us. But having gainful employment is one of the bedrocks for how a person is able to do most of everything else that they want to try to achieve. And unfortunately, Black folks throughout the country are underemployed. Our unemployment rate is always worse, right, than most of every other community, and it really puts us, I think, in a difficult position as a community to address issues because it's hard for us even to fund. And here is one more kind of frame to look at this. If you look at the way that the civil rights movement was funded, right? We often don't zoom in there, right? But there were a network of businesses, Black-owned businesses, at sufficient enough scale that were able to fund activities and fund the movement, fund the efforts of the movement. Well, that sort of commerce needs to exist in order for us to continue the effort today. And when the vast majority of our companies, 96, 97%, are solo firms, which again, the correlation there is that most instances, a firm that is a solo operation likely does not have revenue at a level, at a threshold that would allow them to bring on other people. Well, those same solo practitioner businesses can't also then go fund the things that we need. But I understand why. Like, look, payroll
But it
is
needs
the
to
most
be
sacred
said.
obligation.
And
Oh,
it needs to be said. And I really appreciate you just like shining a light on what needs to be said because we've been told that, work really hard, go to school, go to the right school, do the right thing, get out, get a good job, and everything will be okay. And now we are seeing the other side of that is that's not necessarily a guarantee. That good government job, the thing that we've been told, just do the thing, this good, reliable thing you can rely on, even that in this last season has been snatched away from people. So if what I hear you saying, which maybe not, but what I hear you saying is, I took a risk, I pursued this dream, and I pursued it on a level that there's not just good for me, but there's good for other people. And my goal is to spread my ripple so that I'm building an institution. And you're inviting us into perhaps you want to do this too, because what you thought was stable might not have been as stable as you thought. And there's more for us on the other side. We can fund the things that matter to us that can launch our community forward in a different way so that we're not having conversations about DEI, but we're in fact having conversations about how do we build and what are we growing and what's next for us.
Yeah, it's hard. These conversations are complex and hard, right? But like, I mean, what you just said reminded me of the fact that like the vast majority of our companies are not started in high growth categories. That isn't something that I get enjoyment out of saying. It's the truth, though, right? We're not starting businesses in the industries of the future statistically. That is not me saying that you cannot be successful in an industry that may not be a growth industry, but mathematically, it is harder to be, right? And so folks should know that, right? Like folks should know where there is investment and where there is not, right? So that you can make an educated choice. And again, you may have the best idea ever to innovate in a category that is not identified as high growth. As I said before, if that is your assignment, if that is the thing that is what you're supposed to contribute at this time, then please be a good steward of that assignment. But there are many people that are not pursuing it in that way, that if they knew, hey, really, it's over here where folks are actually starting to secure for financing and beyond, I think we would have some folks jump into spaces that we don't see them jump into now. And again, none of this is said as a point of shame or as critique. It really is just a point of information and a point of us trying to have a high quality conversation with one another about where we are, and I think where we all agree we want to go to. And that for me is what I'm trying to center in all of the discussions. There is a place that we can get to that isn't where some of the challenges of the moment we're in right now do not have to exist in the way that they do. And so how do we work urgently towards that future? Again, not with the idea that this is something that is not able to ever be addressed, and we're supposed to just take whatever's happening or indefinitely. Like that's not for me an acceptable outcome.
Okay, that's fair. Now, we have to talk about something that's recently happening. You shared that the LA location is temporarily closing, and I've hosted events there. It landed really personally for me. And you're navigating a difficult season as a leader. What has this moment taught you about leadership and holding on to this vision of we will have a difficult season, but we will get to the other side? What are you learning right
Um,
now in real time?
Look, I mean, you hold on to your values. You don't hold on to any part of like the things, right? I've always had an idea that the things are going to change, right? Our values are everlasting. Those are the things that kind of move throughout any season that we're in. But any business that I've ever studied, including ours, right? You have to evolve that business, and there may be moments where it's uncomfortable, or the trajectory that you thought that you were going on is not the trajectory that ultimately is being presented for you, right? Or to you, like you're not in the place that you thought that you would be. Obviously, with LA specifically, we thought that given the investment, I mean, we spent $10 million in that club. Plus, we thought that that was going to be a location that would work long term for TGS. And after 4 years of being in the space, and there were many challenges, more than probably we have time to talk about, we found that it wasn't our forever home. So now you're at a crossroads. You could triple down and stay in a location that ultimately isn't the place that you really know that the community deserves and that you're capable of providing, or you can make the very difficult decision in the short term to pursue a different path. And so I after a lot of contemplation, after years, frankly, of thinking through what to pursue next, um, I couldn't find a path that made that particular site make sense. But again, our values haven't changed. And honestly, many of our objectives haven't either, right? We're still going to be in market. We'll still bring the community together while we're transitioning to some new space. And when we find that new space, we're going to make sure that it has all of the things that the community needs and desires within it. getting to that place that I just described is not going to be easy. But your question was, well, what have I've learned? I'm learning the same thing that I've learned for a long time in TGS, is which you have to be honest with folks about what you're thinking and what's happened. And they deserve, again, a high quality conversation about, and that isn't to say that they have to agree with whatever's being discussed, but I owe it to everyone to be very direct about what I'm thinking and what's happened. And so every time I pursued something that way, we've ended up, every tough season that we've ever had, almost immediately after, there's been a breakthrough that I didn't imagine could happen.
Absolutely.
And so I'm confident in that pattern, and we'll continue to be very direct with folks on where we are and what's happening. And my only hope is that that discussion can be had in good faith. That's how I'm going to have it, and that it's going to be full with all the details that everybody needs in order to select. Like, we're not entitled to anybody's engagement at TGS at all. So the only thing that we can do is to talk about what we care about and why we care about it, and hopefully there's alignment there.
You're not entitled, but you have earned it. And there is a community of people who love and care about the organization and about you in particular. And so, like, I went to the
I
alien.
I
Go ahead.
appreciate that. I don't mean to cut you. I appreciate that, but this thing is about our community. I have a job here. Again, I have a mandate. Frankly, that's the thing that I feel like I'm supposed to be doing. But it is the people genuinely of TGS that make it what it is, and we're gonna be fine. I mean, this whole thing. Again, I know folks get trapped in to 2 week and 2 month kind of views of a given
No,
era. I'm not thinking about anything at TGS in a 2 week or 2 month or even a 2 year kind of cycle. I'm really trying to build this in a way that gives us a shot to really exist much longer than that. And
sure.
so again, when you study organizations that have had long histories,
There are ups and downs.
there are ups and downs to how they got there.
But to your other point, generally, when you go through a difficult season and you hold the line, something much better is on the other side for you.
Yeah, that the audacity to go actually make the transition.
But I see my role as a member and as an elder is part of my job is to hold the vision. I can't be out there on the sidelines going, "Oh, what we gonna do?" or complaining. That's not my role. My role is to hold the vision. So what I'm seeing is that you are someone who came here years ago with an idea and that was it. And now you have a mailing list, a membership list, and a proof of concept. So you are in a much stronger and better position than you were before. So it can only get better. It can only get better. And that's the vision that I'm holding for you.
I received that, I really do. And again, you take a long view of anything in your life or in business. I think the trap of feeling like a moment is your forever is a lot of times the thing that stops so many people from pursuing something that eventually will be bigger and better than the current place that they're in. And as a person that's been super guilty of that same kind of pattern, right? Like, I didn't imagine that we could go from one location to two at some points. I didn't know if we could go to two to three. I didn't know if we could go from three to four, right? Like, every single time I found the audacity to grow, right? Try something to grow. It hasn't always gone according to the schedule that I may have had, but if you pursue it diligently, I think that it works out the way that it's supposed to. And so that, I hope that's encouraging to folks. I mean, again, this business is called the Gathering Spot and survived COVID. So it's hard to scare me with something, with any environment that we wouldn't be able to. That should have, I should not be having this discussion with you right now purely off of that event, right? That would have been the easy thing for Gathering Spot, can't gather. So the idea that you come off of that and open a location in 2021 and then another one in 2022, no one in 2020 thought that we could even make it through that year itself. So again, take a longer term view on what's possible, and I think you'll be surprised by what happens.
Great. I love that. Okay, well, you clearly have a skill and a talent for holding a vision and hanging on to something, even particularly in the rough times. This is how you build your muscles. I'd love to know, before we wrap up, Brian, think about 10, 11 years ago. What would Ryan Wilson of today say to your younger self about this vision that you had, that version of yourself who was just starting out? Because as you speak to that person, you've spoken to the dreamers in my community already. But I want you to specifically speak to that young man who, after experiencing the hurt of the Trayvon Martin trial that continued.
So the thing that I would tell my younger self is that, look, this thing that you're talking about, the thing that you continue to wake up every single day, very passionate about trying to make a reality, that thing's not random. And you're about to meet a bunch of people that some you don't know, some you do know, that are going to try to convince you that this is not something that's worth pursuing and that ultimately you don't know really what you're talking about. And it is your responsibility to be responsible to the fact that you have been thinking about this intentionally and you need to see it through. I say that to young me and to probably present day somebody. Being an entrepreneur, right, is in many ways designed to take your heart out of it. It's designed to take your spirit out of the fight. And so I've used the term steward a lot today. I really do think that if you see yourself as a steward of an assignment, it is your job to go and do the best that you can to make that thing a reality, knowing again that it is not random. We could think up an idea right now for a business about anything, right? But it's the things that stick to us that make us want to actually put time and energy towards. Those are the things that we have to pause for a second and say, well, why do I care about this in the way that I do? And moving past again the idea that that's like a random thought that just, yeah, like we all have those, right? You know, wonder what it would
Mhm.
be like to reinvent. You could pick any item. I wonder if I could, but it's the thing that you just like can't shake. That that's a signal that there's a quote that I heard years ago. And here this quote I heard years ago. It was a recording that Denzel Washington was having with a group of students, and part of what he shared, I'm sure folks can find this somewhere on the internet, but part of what he shared that I believe in is that he said, true desire in the heart for anything good is God's proof to you sent beforehand that it's yours already.
Amen.
And I believe that. I believe true desire in the heart for anything good is God's proof to you sent beforehand that it's yours already. So that thing, it already is there. You've got to go now take the steps to make it a reality.
Well, Ryan, I just want to tell you thank you. You know, desire comes from of the Father. And so you are speaking my language. You're speaking the way that I believe. And I'm so grateful. It was, I don't know, I guess it was during COVID. I was coaching a woman out of Washington, D.C., who was a director in the Biden administration. And she was so proud that she had joined the gathering spot in D.C. And then she had some kind of meeting in Atlanta. And she went to the gathering spot in Atlanta, and it gave her great joy to be sitting there having breakfast, having a bowl of grits with her people. And I'm so happy and grateful that you answered that call, that I too have had my experience at the gathering spot and had my own little bowl of grits. You've built something that speaks to directly to our community, that place value in who we are and whose we are. And you continue to stand for that every day. And just know that we are standing with you. We are grateful for what you've
Sure.
built, and we've got your back.
I appreciate you. I'm in your corner as well. If there's any way that we can be helpful, this is what this thing is about. So again, I receive that, I do, but we're in this thing together. I mean, to the thing that I said that was our kind of mantra during COVID, we're all we got. We are all that we have, right? And so we've got to act like it. We got to show up in that way for one another. So I
Yes.
appreciate you. Thank you for sharing this space with me. And if there's anything that I can do, and if there's anybody that's watching this that I or the business can do, please don't hesitate to reach out. We will always do the best that we can.
Ryan, thank you for your transparency, your vision, and for reminding us of what it looks like to keep building, even when it's hard. For those of you listening in the audience, if this conversation stirred something in you about your own journey, about what's next, I made something special for you. It's called The More You Crave. It's a free audio life assessment that helps you get clear about what you actually want and where to begin. You can find it in the show notes. And you can find out more about me at lauriaharris.com. That's Lori, L-O-R-I-A, Harris.com.